Hold on, partner. Don't click off this video just because it's a minivan. Let's talk about this car for a minute. Now, I know the minivan has never really been a sexy vehicle, but it has been one that has been in the center of a lot of larger families here in Canada for decades now. In fact, I know a lot of people who've had minivans in their lives, and they really hold on to them a lot longer than sedans or crossovers. So why is this car still here today? Why is Chrysler still making a minivan when crossovers are so dominant? Well, there's a lot of good reasons for it. First of all, this car drives way better than a lot of the crossovers we have so far. And second, there's a lot of features going on with this, and you can still fit 7 passengers in it. So why is the minivan such a dirty word? Well, I think that the Chrysler Pacifica here can change that. That's why we're going to be taking a full look at this vehicle and show you everything you need to know if you're in the market for a 7-passenger minivan. Now, the first thing you're going to notice in the Pacifica really is this is not the minivan that you grew up with. If you're like me, you're my age. I mean, even though my family never had a minivan, there were certainly minivans in our extended family. So something like the Dodge Caravan is pretty familiar to me. This really doesn't feel a thing like it. You've got a leather dashboard here, and it's actually really nice. You can feel how soft it is. It's quite nice quality. It's stitched all the way through. Door cards are plastic, but you do have leather armrests here. Then you do have the little armrests that fold out for your captain's type chairs. Now, the whole point of this type of vehicle is maximum storage. There's a lot of it here. You have a very deep area here. You can put a large item. You have little cuppy holes here, actual cup holders here. You do have a storage tray down below where you can put change and, I don't know, like probably an iPad. It's a good size there. You have a little storage compartment underneath here as well. And I believe that's where the wireless charger would go if you did get that option. Now, there's also a little cubby underneath here. I guess you could put your phone if you had something smaller. And you've got USB and aux just underneath. Now, this is obviously a minivan. It's designed for families to be able to use it. So your Blu-ray player here is designed for the passengers up front to be able to control it for the people in the back. So if you have kids, you don't really want them playing with all those buttons. So you can eject the DVD or Blu-ray here, and you could plug in the USB. So the USB is actually in the front here for whatever media you want to have in the back. So then that way they don't accidentally bump into it. You know, the USB sticks on the back of the DVD players there would stick out. So if they bump into it, they could break it. This is a really smart move to have it put up here. Now, the rest of the console is relatively straightforward. We talked about it when we were doing the Dodge Challenger. I really like the infotainment setup here with Uconnect 4. Huge improvement over the version 3 that we had with the Jeep Grand Cherokee before. Now, it's a much glossier display and it looks quite nice. I think it's a good size for a vehicle like this, and since it doesn't stick up or out of the vehicle, it's in a really good position. You do have the rest of your parking controls and HVAC controls below, and it works pretty well. You do have dual zone up here, and then you can also set the digital climate control in the back, and the passenger on the right of the vehicle has the controls in the roof liner. Now, you've also got vents up in the roof, so it's a little bit more in line with what you would expect from a minivan, obviously, and it helps with better airflow. So if you do have passengers in the back, they'll be much comfier, especially on a hot day like it is today. You can have the air conditioner running. Now, I have had to adjust the camera a little bit more than I would have liked to, because the doors here, when you put the windows down, they actually don't go down very far. They'll stop at a point here, and then if you push it again, it'll go down maybe like another centimeter. So they are quite high. If you're an adult, then I think it's more for kids not to be able to fall out of, but it'd be kind of annoying if you're sitting here. You can't put it down all the way, so you can't put your arm out the window if you're back here, but you do have sunshades. And again, it's important to know that they don't actually cover the whole window. I'd say it's probably 70% roughly. There's quite a bit of gap here, and then a bigger gap on the back there. So a little bit more of a gap than you might be used to, but for the most part it works. You do have heated seats back here. Their buttons are on the door. This vehicle does have the rear entertainment, so you can flip up the screen. And it is a touchscreen, something that we don't often see with these back here. So again, the USB, you plug it into the front. HDMI would go in here, and you can have 2 different HDMI inputs. There are headphone jacks here, but you also do have wireless headphones that come with the Uconnect system. And there's also a little app. So I guess if your kids really are bored, there's a game called Are We There Yet? And you can see maybe little fun games and play little games while you're on the road. So it's quite fun. I think the adults are going to be a little bit easier to reach this. I don't know about a kid. It might be a little too far for them, but it can still work pretty well. And the fact that they fold down as well makes it maybe a little bit easier, so you don't have to worry about bumping into it. When you're done, you can fold it back down. And the map pockets back here are pretty much designed to be able to put the remote control and the headphones. So it's really, it's not just they slapped all this together and said, hey, we're going to put some DVD screens on the back of this, who cares? It really feels like they thought about what makes the most sense and said, okay, we're going to have DVD screens here. We're going to need to put the accessories that go with it somewhere. And since there is no console here, they've put them on the back of the seats here. For the most part, I don't think I've ever used the map pockets on the back of the seats before, so it makes sense. It's functional. And that's what you want with a minivan. You want something that's going to work for your kids, because I find, and I could go and probably look at the statistics for it, but in personal experiences with people who I know have owned minivans, they'll buy them new and they'll hold on to them a lot longer than people who buy a sedan, or especially now a crossover, do. People keep these for long periods of time. So if you're buying something like this 2018 Pacifica today, you're going to want to keep it for a long time, and you want to make sure that it's going to be functional. It's not just a vehicle to get you back and forth, that it actually makes sense. And I'm very impressed so far with the interior design of this. If you watched our episode of Test Drive Garage from the other week on my 2001 BMW 740iL going into the BMW dealer for service, you might have noticed that there were some wiggling feet in the back of my car. And any parent can appreciate that when you're on a road trip, even if it's a short one, your kids need to be distracted. And even if you ask them very politely not to make any noise while you're filming a video for YouTube, they will still be a little squirmy back there. And that is where a vehicle like this 2018 Chrysler Pacifica comes into play. And one of the reasons why I'm actually really enjoying this car a lot more than I thought I would. I'm able to film this video here with my daughter in the back seat, and she is completely into the movie that's playing on the Blu-ray player up here in the front. Now, the original philosophy behind Chrysler's minivan, the Dodge Caravan, was for it to be a vehicle that could store all your stuff, your entire family, but still drive like a car. And I have to say that this really does still drive like a car. I'm actually more impressed with the way that this car drives and handles than I thought I ever would be. Sure, the interior is quite nice, but it really does feel like you're sitting in a car and not like a crossover. And I feel like this isn't as big of a vehicle as it actually is. On the inside here, I think that it's pretty low to the ground. I feel like I'm in a small enough vehicle as we're driving along these rough roads here. And I feel that it's nimble and agile enough to get the job done. But when I step out of the vehicle, I realize that this is actually a minivan and not like a little crossover thing. It's actually a lot bigger than it really feels on the road. And we've driven quite a number of crossovers that feel way bigger, much more bulkier than they actually are. This is the complete opposite, where I'm actually driving along and I feel that we're in a small vehicle compared to what we actually are in. So those are some really good points, and all the safety tech and everything that goes into this, like the parking sensors and backup camera and backup prevention, so if you are going to run into something, it'll try to stop it for you. It's all there to help protect the occupants of the vehicle and the people on the outside, and ultimately make this feel like a smaller car. So I have to say, I'm quite impressed with the way that this handles and drives. And sure, it's still front wheel drive, so if you really do need all-wheel drive, you are limited to going to the crossover market, get something a little bit bigger. But I think for a majority of people who are looking for this, I think front wheel will probably work. And really, with a good set of winter tires during the winter, you'll be fine. It's not really that big of a problem. I think there's good space throughout this vehicle as well. I'm pretty comfortable up here. The seats are firm. You don't quite sink into them like you might find on some other vehicles. But again, everybody's going to have their own opinion about what they like and overall how it feels to them. But I really do have to say there is a lot of space up here. I'm very comfortable. I'm in a good position. There's tons of storage beside me, tons of storage in the back. And with those Stow and Go seats, you can certainly get rid of the seating without having to rip it out yourself. And if you need to use it for other things other than getting your family back and forth to school or work, you've got those options. That's the thing. There's more option with something like this, especially over a crossover. So if you really do need a multi-purpose vehicle, I think that the minivan is still going to be an option for a lot of people, even though it really has gone onto the back burner. I don't think people think about minivans anymore, but I really do think that a vehicle like this could put it back on the map for a lot of buyers. It's funny, when I was driving the Lincoln Navigator back to Montreal to pick up the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, I kept thinking about a Chrysler Pacifica. No lie. Sure enough, we found out the Stelvio wasn't going to be ready for us, and the vehicle I could take was this 2018 Pacifica Limited. So maybe there's some sort of divine power that wanted me to drive this minivan, because I've actually been enjoying it quite a lot over the past week. Now, first off, there's a lot of good with Chrysler's minivan. We think the rear seat entertainment is probably the best family-oriented experience on the market, and easily the best that we've used. Uconnect 4 is also a much better experience over previous versions, and sits in second place for our top consumer segment infotainment systems. The available trims and options might seem like overkill, but allows customers to pick the exact options and features they want in order to save some cost on things they don't necessarily need. The Stow N Vac system is also a neat option. Honda also has a vacuum in their Odyssey, but the placement in the center of the car makes more sense than having it in the trunk, allowing you to reach everywhere in the Pacifica with ease. And finally, the original Stow and Go system has been a unique selling feature for Chrysler for quite some time now, and it works wonderfully, allowing you to hide away the additional seats in this vehicle in order to haul larger items around. The flexibility of it really comes in handy if you only have one vehicle, but need to use it for more than moving around 7 people. Now, I have to say there isn't much to dislike about this minivan, and if you watch next week, we'll be looking at another competitor, so it's not like we're uninformed about what's on the market and think that the Chrysler here is flawless. I'd say that the price for this limited trim with all the options on it is steep, coming in at $12,000 more than the Kia Sedona, $9,000 more than the Honda Odyssey, and $9,000 over the Sienna front-wheel drive Limited. I'll also add the lack of all-wheel drive to this list, as the Toyota Sienna appears to be the only North American market minivan with all-wheel drive in the consumer segment, and I'm not counting minivanable vehicles such as the Ford Transit or Mercedes Metris and Sprinter. While it's logical to compare these vehicles with the minivan segment, realistically buyers are going to be looking at mid-size 3-row crossover SUVs like the Mazda CX-9 or Toyota Highlander if they're really considering the Pacifica, especially at its near $60,000 price tag. I know Chrysler wanted to position itself as more of a luxury brand, and it seems like the Pacifica is inching in that direction. Is it worth the price tag though? Who knows? There are heavy incentives available on this and the plug-in hybrid version as of writing this, and that's before you start negotiating at the dealer level. I think the Pacifica has a lot going for it and might tempt buyers away from the bulkier crossovers, especially if they're coming from older versions of the Caravan or Town & Country. What do you think about this minivan? Is it still relevant in the market today, or do you think they'll disappear along with the mid-size family sedan? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our PRN Tech channel if you're interested in seeing what crazy things we do up in the world of electronics, and click the link at the end of the video to see us play some Halo 5 in this Pacifica. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.